I know I've been talking about Japanese RPGs a lot as of late on my channel, and I promise you that it's all purely coincidental. I've talked a whole lot about different types of JRPGs from Lunar to Neo, but today I wanted to look at something a little more niche. If you play more on the casual side of gaming, there's a pretty good chance you've never heard of the Ys series, or if you have, you maybe have never played it. Well, the team who worked on this game reached out to me and asked if I was willing to do a sponsored video about the re-release of their game Ys Origin, which was just re-released on the PS4 and the Vita. Yes, a Vita game. I was as pleasantly surprised as you. While this may be a sponsored video, I was more than happy to do a video on this game because I actually have played a little bit of the Ys series back in the day, and I always felt like they were fantastically unique games that were well worth your time. So let's wind the clock back a bit and allow me to tell you the origin story of Ys. The creator of the Ys games is a Japanese developer called Nihon Falcom, or just Falcom, since Nihon is the Japanese word for Japan. What makes Falcom, who are apparently named after Han Solo's ship, so damn interesting is that they have been almost always a PC developer. The founder of the company was a huge fan of the Apple II back in 1981 when the company was founded, and most of their ports have been found on various PC systems over the years. In the case of Ys Origins itself, the game was released for Windows back in 2006 in Japan. Of course, we didn't hear much about this game until we got an English localization in 2012 by Xseed, and the game is currently available on Steam and now PS4 and Vita. So even though this game has been out for a while now, the reason why Ys has resurfaced is for the first time, console gamers will get a chance to experience the game that is chronologically the first in the series on consoles. I got my hands on the retail PS4 version, but low-key, I really wanted to try it out on Vita as well, since I think that the game is just so well suited for handheld. Now with all the formal background out of the way, let me tell you a bit about the game itself. You play Ys Origin from a sort of isometric perspective. The environment is rendered in 3D, but your character and the enemies are rendered as sprites, which I know it seems a little bit confusing, but it actually turned out pretty damn good, because these are some of the most gorgeous detailed sprites I've seen in a game, especially for such an old game running on the PS4. The sprites have a lot of angles, smooth animation, and they're just a joy to behold at sometimes, maybe even a little mesmerizing. But you don't have too much time to admire them because Ys is a relentless game. Your character is always rushing into battle and taking on enemies with enthusiasm and speed. As you can see, Ys is complete combat carnage. You can pull off hack and slash combos, but you can also jump and swap in between all sorts of weapons and elemental powers, which constantly keeps things fresh throughout your playthrough. On top of this, there's actually a boost meter that actually builds for successful hits, and allows your character to basically go Super Saiyan in a pinch, turning them into a more powerful version of themselves, dealing more damage. Unlike other Ys games that have always starred a character named Adel, Ys Origin gives you the choice of 3 different characters with very different fighting styles. I like the fact that the dainty old Yunika is a big weapon specialist. She's the one that slings around battle axes and greatswords. Hugo is the wizard, and the one you want to choose if you'd like a bullet hell-like experience, interesting enough. And finally, we have the Claw, who is a high-risk, high-reward close combat damage machine, who I won't directly show gameplay of because I don't want to spoil a cool surprise, but trust me, you want to do a playthrough with this guy. Speaking of playthroughs, you'll actually want to play this game multiple times, because I noticed there was quite a bit of variations in both dialogue and events based on which character you play as. Not to mention the story gets different details at different times from each character's playthrough. One of the best things about Ys Origin is that you don't have to know anything about Ys' rather obscure lore. This is a prequel, so there's nothing to worry about. It's set about 700 years before the events of the first Ys game, so go into it with an empty mind because it will overload you with a lot of cool lore. The story is basically a very classic clash between good and evil. There's an invasion of demons into the land of Ys that prompts the twin goddess that look over their people to take drastic measures, and as your character you play a key role in the conflict between relentless and determined demons and the holy forces of the goddesses. Now, usually when I do take a look at an older game like this one, I have to tell you that the graphics are not so good anymore, but it's still worth it because there's a good game underneath it all. With Ys Origin, however, I don't have to say that, because the game could easily have launched today. In my opinion, it looks in no way dated thanks to the fundamentally sound art design and craftsmanship of the game's assets. It was a good move to use sprites for the characters for that very reason, since low poly characters from 2006 look horrible to most people today. I also have to say that the game plays like butter when it comes to the controls, and 60 FPS drives that point home. Ys games have always been tuned like a fork when it comes to the action itself. I also really dig the music, which strangely reminded me of the pumping track from Valkyrie Profile at times. However, one of the biggest caveats I should warn you about is some of the quest design has become just a little bit outdated. From a simple point of view, Ys Origins is a simple dungeon crawler where you move up from one dungeon level to the next, fighting monsters and bosses to reach the top of the tower. However, in between these fights, you may run into locked doors requiring keys or obstacles requiring a certain skill or item to bypass them. Now, we've all had those missions before, but it may throw some gamers into a loop due to the vagueness on how to overcome it. One example of this is that there may be moments in the games where you lose track of your current goal, or you don't understand what you need to do in order to progress further into the tower. With a lack of a quest log or really a hint system, you may find some certain areas frustrating or confusing to the point where you may have to look at a guide online just so that you can get back on track. If you do have a PS4 or a Vita, it's worth actually picking up this game on those platforms, since the devs have done enhancements to the game on those versions. You'll be getting better visuals and an overall improved UI. They've also spent months working on optimal widescreen HD graphics. And outside of some weird technical visuals and audio glitches at the start of the game due to just using very old cutscenes, it seems that once the game gives you control, everything runs buttery smooth and without incident. The ports were done by the guys at .mu, who have always impressed me with their mobile ports. They've been working directly with Falcom regarding this port, and I can definitely see it with the final product. Now, if you don't have a PS4 or a Vita, then I would just say go ahead and grab a Steam copy or even a DRM-free version from GOG. While Ys Origins won't really, feel like a revolutionary game nowadays, it provides a very well thought out and alternate JRPG take on the foundation for the rest of the Ys franchise. It's an attrition-fueled reactionary title that just has this very unique charm about it that you really just come to admire what was accomplished with such a small game. Just one little tip from my experience, don't underestimate this game's difficulty modes. This game can really give you a tough challenge. Plus, if you like Origins, there are just a ton more games in the series that are just out there, ready for you to play.